Estamos convencidos que todos
¿Todos?
tenemos la capacidad de impactar. Capitalista Consciente es un espacio para presentar buenas ideas, compartir grandes proyectos y mostrar cómo cada granito de arena cuenta ante un mar de oportunidades y un mundo por transformar.
Un espacio para escuchar nuevas ideas, cuestionar nuestra forma de pensar y sobre todo un espacio para cambiar juntos nuestra forma de actuar.
Este capítulo es presentado por Francamente, el primer centro de aprendizaje digital con una certificación de liderazgo y emprendimiento consciente 100% en español.
So, welcome back. Welcome to our second episode with Nilima. It's an amazing conversation. I hope you heard the first part where we got to know her a little bit more. And now let's dive right into Shakti leadership. And my first question, Nilima, is how is it the connection between this conscious leadership and this Shakti leadership? Where does it connect? How does it complement this notion that Raj, Thomas, and the conscious capitalism movement have been pushing of a more human and more compassionate leader and a more whole leader? But I want to hear about what is it that you think about this conscious leadership and how the way Shakti connects with it.
Perhaps I should begin by making the bridge between our last episode and this one. So
Sure.
The first book I wrote is called My Cancer is Me. And it is our journey through Vijay's recovery and through his cancer. But in the process, we created a model for health and well-being, physical, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual, how to heal yourself on all these 5 levels. And as soon as that book got written, a friend of mine, a woman, she said to me, and I wrote that book with my husband, and she said, Nilima, that's a great book, but you still need to write your book, right? Which is your story as a woman, your story as your mother's daughter, as an Indian woman, and who has battled the odds on both her personal and her professional life, and come through in a way that is unique to being a woman, and it's different from the way a man would have made that journey. So I realized, first of all, that My Cancer is Me, it needed a bookend. So if this was about the journey to health, we needed a book on the journey to leadership and personal growth. So holistic health and personal growth are like 2 sides of the same coin, right? You can be perfectly healthy, but if you're not leading and growing, it's incomplete. And if you're only focused on conscious leadership and, growth, but if you haven't healed your past, and if you haven't come to a place of wellness and resilience psychologically, then your leadership will keep rubber banding back to your wounding. So as a leader, you're only as good as your healed wounds. And so I realized I need to write my second book, which is about how to be a conscious leader and make sure that these 2 strands or bodies of work will always work together. Therapy and health, and growth and leadership. These 2 need to be working together. So that's how the model of Shakti leadership came to be, creating a model that works from the inside out, that begins with presence, because being conscious isn't just about being responsible. It's about knowing your deeper self, knowing what your center is, how to access that, how to operate from there. So this master key of presence is something that is totally critical to being a conscious leader. You cannot be a conscious leader if you haven't first cultivated this master key called presence. And from that presence, I'm now describing the 5 elements that needed to go into the model. From presence, you come into a power that is flowing through you at all times. It is who you essentially are. It is your soul force. It is your vitality coming together with your soul force. It is the best of your mind. It's the best of your body, mind, spirit that uniquely moves through you. And that is your Shakti. So once you are present, you also know how to express yourself through your Shakti. That is your true power. And you don't get stuck in these win-lose ego power games. And then we cultivate three capacities. One is called becoming psychologically whole. And in that we say you have to become your own parent and your own child. This is the work of Dr. Eric Berne, transaction analysis, to become an aware adult. Equally, Carl Jung's model of the anima-animus integration, that you have to find your inner masculine nature and your inner feminine nature. So when you put these four selves together, we say you become the wise fool of tough love. You become psychologically whole with this fourfold self. Your parent self, your child self, your inner man, your inner woman, so to speak. And then the fourth element is becoming flexible. So once you're psychologically whole, you need to know how to flex to different leadership challenging situations. So there will be a moment where you need to play your wise self. There'll be another moment where you need to lighten up and play your child self. There'll be another moment where you have to draw healthy boundaries and say no, right? Bring on that tough inner masculine energy. And there will be a time where you have to basically open and include and be vulnerable and be loving and bring on that inner feminine energy. So the ability to flex is also a skill that needs to be practiced, because most of us are tend to be preferred or confirmed in one of these four. So then it's say for a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So there'll be a situation where you need to be, loving, but you're busy being tough, and you're wondering why you're not making a breakthrough, right? And so on. So flexibility is a very important element in the Shakti model. And then the fifth element is called congruence, and it's all about saying you may be whole and flexible, but where are you going with all that? What is your higher purpose, and are you on purpose? So are you congruent? And congruence is about essentially becoming what you are, and not pretending to be someone else. So to be congruent is that the leader you are is the person you are. And that is how you are bringing your gifts and talents to the world in your leadership. So that's congruence. And then the hero's journey map, which is for both men and women, drawing from Joseph Campbell and Maureen Murdoch's work, that to come into these 5 power bases, presence, power, wholeness, flexibility, congruence, makes you go on a journey, because nothing worth having is ever given to you on a platter. You have to earn it, right? You have to earn it. And so the hero and the heroine's journey is part of the Shakti leadership model. And both, men and women do journey a bit differently because they are socialized differently. In the future, when boys and girls are brought up in the same way, then maybe, they will not have different journeys. Ultimately, both men and women need to make their inner hero's journey and their inner heroine's journey. Because the inner hero's journey is the journey of their masculine nature coming into its fullness. And the inner heroine's journey is their feminine nature coming into its fullness, regardless of gender. Because we are equal parts masculine and feminine in who we are, whether it's the right brain and the left brain, or the head and the heart. And we have this innate polarity in ourselves, which in the East is called the Tao, Chinese Yin Yang, right? Or Shiva Shakti in the yogic tradition. We, regardless of gender, we contain these two polarities. And to come into our full power, you need to become that whole person.
Yes, we were fortunate enough to have Raj as one of our guests, and he told us his story. And one of the things that was shocking for us and amazing to hear is that he tried to honor his dad through his work at first, but then he realized that most of the work that he's really passionate about and where he found his purpose is about being more true to his mother and honoring her through his work. And so here comes my next question is, which are these two polarities that we all have about what determines whether a quality is more feminine or more masculine, which is one of the questions we've been asked the most when we talk about this with this Shakti model. And after we read the book, we were shocked and we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then when we discussed it with some other people, they would say, okay, but what determines whether some qualities are more masculine and some qualities are more feminine? And does that create a polarity between these two genders, even though you're saying it's not about gender? Can we talk a little bit more about it?
Sure. So, first of all, we must understand that nature created polarities. We can't argue with the fact they exist in nature, right? And then we have to ask, if nature is intelligent and nature created polarities, then they must have a purpose. So, what is the purpose of polarity? And I always show the slide of a horseshoe magnet, which has a North Pole and a South Pole. And because of the magnetic field created by the North Pole and South Pole, when you put a wire through the space between them, you generate power, electricity, current, needed to fuel the system. So when there is no polarity, the system is purely potential static energy. And since all systems need dynamic energy, moving energy to fuel it, the system creates a tension and through the polarity. So that is why our brain isn't one thing. It has two lobes. It is the design. It is the inbuilt design to become a self-empowering or self-powering system. We are given polarity. Now, that is nature, but through culture, which is society, we tend to have, human beings have a tendency to overvalue one pole and undervalue the other, which right there is the loss of balance, because these two polarities are coexistent and codependent. They're like inhale and exhale. But when you say, I want to inhale, but I don't want to exhale, right there, you create a breathless system. And if you look around the world and the problems today, that has overvalued the male and the masculine in the patriarchal structures of many societies and made all things feminine and women subordinate to that. It is that unequal power, the dominant group and the subordinate group, that has caused the problems. The fact that polarity exists isn't the problem. It is actually necessary. But when we give it a overvalue and an undervalue, that is where all the problems really begin. And so it exists. And in a very, very simple way, if you look at in the Yin and Yang model, Yang is considered everything that's active, and Yin is everything that's receptive. And these are complementarities, right? So similarly, Shiva is pure stillness, witness, consciousness, and Shakti is its dynamic, creative principle. And it is the interplay of these two that then creates things, the creation, right? So for everything to exist, these two have to be within. Now, who decides what is masculine and what is feminine? Frankly, culture decides, right? So yes, some amount of nature has already decided. So testosterone, which has that aggression, is the masculine energy. And then you think of estrogen and oxytocin, which is the nurturing energy, right? So it does exist hormonally in our biology as well, depending on what body you have, right? But the interesting thing is, we are not confined to our bodies. As we grow older, psychologically, we have the freedom to become whole. We don't need to be just one gender or the other, even in our psychology. The biology makes us one and the other for procreation. But for us to be psychological human beings, there's nothing stopping us from cultivating the complementary other. So, in fact, we have to be psychologically whole, right? So the archetype in the yogic tradition is called the Ardhanarishwar, the half male, half female God. That when we are as God, when we are in our full divinity and our full power, full expression, we are equal parts masculine and feminine. And so, there was this book called the Athena Doctrine, and I think they studied thousands of people around the world, and they asked, which of these qualities do you consider masculine? Which of these qualities do you consider feminine? So there are some cultural norms around this. And if you know the yin and yang structure, there is in the yin black fish, there is a little white dot. And in the white yang fish, there is a little black dot, which means that yin and yang are on a spectrum. There is no such thing as pure yin or pure feminine and pure yang or pure masculine. At a spectrum, even yin contains a little bit of yang, and the strongest yang will contain a little bit of yin, to the point that when something becomes too yang, it flips into yin energy to bring balance. Nature has an innate ability to keep balancing its polarities, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. The reason we get these questions is the wound of the patriarchy that is speaking to us. The patriarchy has wounded both men and women by overvaluing the masculine and undervaluing the feminine qualities. So everything masculine is rewarded, and everything feminine is just used, exploited, but not paid for. Right? So nobody wants to be identified with the feminine. Even the women don't want to be identified with the feminine. So they rather show up as men with masculine qualities in a man's world, because that's where the power is, right? But as a result, it's like we keep inhaling and we cannot exhale, and then the whole world is choked and breathless. And our species is on the brink of extinction because of the imbalance of these two forces in all aspects of life.
I love it, and the first time I read it, for me, it gave me a clue or a map of how to act and how to be present as a leader. For example, sometimes we tend to think we need to be more assertive, we need to be more focused on results, and these financial results that sometimes are more as a masculine virtue, right? And we tend to forget these other parts of caring, compassion, love, even as these feminine virtues. And in the business world, we totally block these feminine virtues, and we have been told that we need to be professionals. So for me, and I like to say that we leave our best part outside the office, outside the world of business, where if we change that, we can be more present, we can be better leaders, and we can be assertive, but as well compassionate at the same time. And that for me has gave me this roadmap on how to act and how to present myself depending on the situation whether I am. And that for me is the greatest how do you say it, toolkit for someone who's trying to be a different leader and to try to impact this world without being only competitive or only in this love and nurture part. So I loved it, and I believe this is a great step towards becoming or turning this economic system into a more complete one, whole one, right?
Yes.
So I have a question. The polarity for me, it's amazing because that's what generates energy, and the wise fool of tough love is how actually the yin and yang of how we should be. How can we navigate through that spectrum all the time? Now, the other thing you mentioned is you have to earn it. How do you see that related to the Kabbalah principles or ideas from Judaism? Because there's some, earning part to the journey, right?
Yes. So which aspect of the Kabbalah are you referring to? Could you say a little bit more?
There is a strong message when you study Kabbalah and you dive into the principles that, things are not handed or given out to you. If they are, there's no actually, that's not a reward. It's actually diminishing your capacity. So you need to earn, you need to work for that. And it's all connected, with the hero's journey as well, because you come to the other side stronger and better because you earned that journey. So have you touched the Kabbalah philosophy throughout your journey as well?
I don't know if it influenced me subconsciously. I haven't consciously used it in the Shakti model. I have trained in the Kabbalah at different times, very, very briefly. But I even had a wonderful conversation with a rabbi, a female rabbi in Tel Aviv last year, year before last. And so one thing I do know is the main principle is that there is the light, which is ready to bestow, but without the container, the sephirot, without the sphere that can receive it, the light just goes into the void, right? So this is the concept of the earning, that we need to be the container. We need to form ourselves into a container, a chalice. In yoga, we'd call it dharana shakti, the ability to bear it, is up to us, right? So yes, that the grace is there, the light is there, everything is there, but we have to shape ourselves into it and for it.
So, good, thank you. The other one is, with all this journey, when you go back to the Nilima from the previous episode, where she was an executive, successful executive, how much would this knowledge of today's episode, the Shakti knowledge, experience, and studying and learning, and would have helped you at that time? So that my question is more, if somebody's out there facing the same challenges and say, I can just abandon, this journey and start my inner journey and go for something else, or how do I evolve and actually use those tools that are available today to actually make the change happen where I am?
I always grapple with this question, and Raj and I joke when people ask, all these ideas are great, but in my company, my boss was never going to accept any of this. My company's culture is completely not ready for any of this. And so they get into a bit of a victim mode. And then so we say to them, change the company or change the company.
Yes.
Right? So you always have a choice, which is to leave and go make your own path, like I did. Or if you know better and you can learn all these skills and tools and frameworks and perspectives, if you can find your sphere of influence within your organization, manage up, manage down, manage sideways, and lead up and lead down and lead sideways consciously, and see how can you influence people to start thinking this way. So you start creating some kind of an innovative hub inside a larger organization. But I always talk about the seed and the soil, Thomas, that this is again a Chinese concept, that you can have the most fantastic seed, but if the soil is toxic, then that seed's not going to grow. Which is, we can come for all these amazing training programs as leaders and come to the Conscious Capitalism conference and get all charged and fired up. And then you go back on Monday morning and you just die another death, right? Because that place is just so not ready. So I think we have to also go into organizations, and this is something that we are creating a consortium for, which is um, everyone trained in the Shakti model and these new paradigm skill sets and interventions. How can we come together and offer um, a more in-depth intervention to organizations, either a startup that's looking to start right. So, organize yourself as a teal organization based on living systems, as far as possible, non-hierarchical, etc. Or to go into an organization whose leaders have bought into the idea of conscious capitalism and are genuinely ready for the heroic journey it's going to take, because we know all change is uncomfortable. Everyone wants transformation, but no one wants to change.
Yes.
Right? And we often joke that you go there in the beginning and everything seems wonderful, but then when the change becomes like disruptive and starts shaking the status quo, then the empire strikes back, and all the good stuff is cut, budgets are cut. Who's this consultant? We don't need them anymore because we came a bit too close to comfort. And in fact, that is the time where real leadership is required, to wait it out and to push through until you make that breakthrough, and not get scared and return with an incomplete journey.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So I think there's an amazing journey that you promote. The people join you for the whole year. Can you share with us a little bit of this? Because I think this is an invitation. We want people to listen to this story, to this conversation, and feel inspired and know where to look for more.
Yes.
And
so I realized that if we cannot change organizations, then let's change individuals. Let's create change makers. And those change makers can go out and be the change and make the change, either outside of an organization or go back into an organization. That's up to them. But I wanted to focus on those catalytic individuals. So we created a 9-month Shakti Fellowship journey, which is certified with the University of San Diego. Women from all over the world who are inspired to be change makers in the Shakti model, inspired by conscious capitalism, inspired by peace through commerce, and all these, ideas of the new paradigm. They come to San Diego. We spend a week and we go through this very intensive, immersive experience of really, it's like a boot camp, morning, noon, and night, very, very transformational. So those inner shifts start taking place. There are lots of, tears, and it's pretty amazing what takes place in San Diego. And then they all go back to their homes and work. And then every 2 weeks, we meet online for a 90-minute workshop. And we have 3 tracks: step in, step up, and step out over those 9 months. Step in is doing the hard work of inner transformation. Step up is learning conscious leadership skills that are both masculine and feminine. And step out is finding a game-changing project that you are then going to deliver, incubate, and present at graduation. And it's fantastic to see the kind of work in these 3 cohorts over 3 years. We have 51 Shakti Fellows from 13 countries.
wow.
And their projects have been just fabulous. You're going to interview Monica Jaramillo. Her project is about really raising up the grandmother archetype and bringing the wisdom of grandmothers to the world, from around the world. We've had one woman who was involved with the Shoah Foundation, and it's about animating the Holocaust survivor stories so that they are recorded for posterity. We've had Presence and Flex, which is this go into organizations and teach intact teams how to become more present and how to flex between masculine and feminine, and then for the company to track, measure, and make it part of the performance management system, right? So this is how you can bring diversity inclusion into organizations in a more long-term kind of way. There's just there was one project about elders. How do you take elder care into homes, into, instead of them having to come to a clinic. We've had medicine women, with essences in Guatemala, training little girls on how to work with essential oils as ways to, use natural remedies. So it's just, imagine 51 projects
Yes.
from all over the world.
So is this journey just for women?
Good question. So I travel the world, I teach online. I've spoken to thousands of men and women around the world and taught short workshops, long workshops, keynotes, 7-day programs. I've done it all to both men and women. But because of SDG 5, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 5 of the United Nations, which says, if you raise up women and girls, you're going to have a disproportionate positive impact on everything else. Mm-hmm. So it's with that intention that I realize women and girls are underserved, and women need their own space in which to learn and grow, because they do learn and grow differently when they are in a women-only space. And so for that reason, this 9-month fellowship is women-only, but there are many other programs. I have a Udemy course that is going to be launched shortly in the next couple of months. Anyone can take that. There's going to be a course on a platform with one of our Russian SHAKTI fellows called Neo School. That will be for both men and women. So lots of, just look up shaktileadership.com and up to date on what else goes on there.
Perfect. Thank you.
I love it, Nilima, and I think I have a new goal, like a new training I want to go through, so we might see each other later on. But in order to close this chapter, we love to do the same question to everyone, because we believe each answer is so enriching and so rich of experience, and it opens up our paradigm of success, our hearts, our minds, everything. So we want to hear about, what is it that you think what a conscious capitalist looks like?
A conscious capitalist as a company or a person?
Both. You can choose. I believe it's the same. Like if we live in this conscious capitalist movement in the world, in this capitalist world, we need to be conscious, and everything starts within ourselves. But I really want to hear about your opinion about it.
Yeah, I would actually like to speak to a conscious capitalist organization, because I think that is the next goal. There are many conscious people, but turning that into an organization is the next challenge, right? So I would love to see a company that is figuring out multiple forms of capital and learning to exchange multiple forms of capital, not just money. That has integrated itself into the ecosystem by becoming an ecosystem itself, right? And that means a living system. Its structure isn't a mechanical two-dimensional structure, that it has a reciprocity with nature, with culture, with all aspects that it is a part of. So for me, where individuals can come, where it's like an incubator, it's almost like a womb space where individuals can come and grow into their full potential. And I call it the we, where both the me and the we is co-held. Right? each one is able to stand in their genius and contribute from their, passion, and know that they are part of a greater whole, right? So for me, that would be fantastic, because organizations are such excellent grounds for intentional evolution.
We couldn't agree more, right, Thomas?
Yes.
It's been a dream for me to be able to be here with Thomas and with you, Nilima, and to discuss this. And for me, it's the future. And if we don't want to see that, we're being fools and we're being, yes, I don't know how to say it, but it's this is the future, and we need to see this inner change and the way we see leadership and the way we see organizations as a whole system that creates a better world for everyone. And one of the things I love the most of this chapter is the fact that we have integrated a lot of theories from all over the world, and we have gotten the best part of each one. Instead of fighting among mine is better, it's about what is it that we can learn from all of them and how we can create a new model that serves us as society, as human, and also as a planet. So thank you, both of you, for being here, for being able to share with us. And I believe this is going to be one of the most enriching chapters of this series of Conscious Capitalists. And I believe Latin America needs to be talking about these models, needs to be discussing these changes and proposing new solutions. That is what you, Thomas, and Nilima do every day. So thank you for being here, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Nilima. And for me, it's listening to you is just recognizing two things. My purpose is to accelerate the change towards a more conscious business ecosystem, and the way you spread your philosophy that people should multiply that, make it exponential. I do the same thing, so I'm very excited about how you do it. And the other thing, as you collected so many different experiments, experience, and theories and put them all together, it's like, we come and we look at the past and we see that things are not complete. As we get more knowledge and expand our consciousness, we can understand how to actually put those things together and make a better approach. And probably in 5, 2, 3, or 10 years from now, we're going to look at this. Oh my God, there's so much more we can add to this. And we will continuously to grow and to expand consciousness through learning more. So it's a learning journey. So thank you so much, and I've learned so much today.
Thank you both. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Esta temporada es presentada por CBJ, Conscious Business Journey, acelerando la transformación para un ecosistema de negocios conscientes a través de la capacitación de líderes y consultores en fundamentos del capitalismo consciente.